name is Jose. Yeah. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jose Falk Cepeda. I'm a senior research fellow with the International Food Policy Research Institute, IFPRI, in Washington, D.C. I'm the lead economist for the Program for Biosafety Systems, a program that has 20 years plus of experience dealing with biotechnology and biosafety and biosecurity issues in different parts of the world, especially in Africa and South Asia, in Southeast Asia too. Let me also put my other hat over here, and this is I'm a member of the board of the International Consortium of Applied Bioeconomy Research, which is the host of this webinar, and also one of the partners involved in the organization of the ICABAR conference that is held around June, July of every year. This year is going to be in Ravello, Italy, and it has to deal with issues such as the bioeconomy, biotechnology, biosafety, biofuels, entrepreneurship, and so on. So I think there's a nice opportunity for the different participants at one point to kind of submit papers and for the application for next year's conference, and I invite you on that. So let's get started with the webinar. At this point, what we're going to be doing is having a 20-minute presentation by Luis Sandoval, and then 10 minutes for questions and answers. And then we're going to have another 20-minute presentation by Arie Sanders, and then another 10 minutes of Q&A, just to make sure that we are on the same boat. Just to kind of make sure that everybody, just a reminder, please, everybody is muted. I think I'm going to do so myself as soon as this is done. And what I will do is I just turn on my camera when the 20 minutes are over so that we kind of keep time over here. And that's a gentle reminder to please wrap it up. And maybe I'll do it 1 or 2 minutes before the time is done. Let me just say one last word. And in terms of, I am a Zamorano graduate of 1984 of the old agronomist program. But over the years, I have been also assistant professor, instructor, and at one point collaborator with Arie Sanders in doing a couple of research projects examining the genetically modified maize that is being cultivated and still continues to be cultivated in Honduras. We did an economic assessment of that. And was published in different venues. This is, in a sense, a testament to Zamorano's capacity to do advanced research, and hopefully one that we can actually come back and move forward with supporting in terms of technical support and technical backstopping, and not only for the research part, but also in the education part. So, okay, so let's get started with the webinar. Luis Sandoval is an associate professor of the Agribusiness Management Department and institutional research coordinator at Zamorano University, Honduras. He's also the principal investigator at the Consumer-Driven Sustainability Laboratory. His research focuses on sustainable consumption, adaptation, and adoption of agtech by smallholder farmers and food security. So now, Luis, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Okay, let me get my timer here. Hello, everybody. My name is Luis Sandoval. I am originally from El Salvador, but working in Honduras, which is where Zamorano University is located. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about Zamorano University in Honduras, in case you don't know about us. First of all, we are a private non-profit university. We are officially registered in the US, but our main campus is in Honduras. And we focus only in tropical agriculture and other related disciplines. Every year, we have between 1,200 and 1,300 students at the undergraduate level. We are a boarding school, so those students spend roughly 11 months a year with us here in Honduras. And we usually have between 17 and 20 countries represented in campus. Of course, most of them coming from Latin America. As of today, we have 4 undergraduate degrees, which are going to be agronomy, food science, agribusiness, and environmental sciences. And we have 4 masters and several continuous education programs throughout the year. One core component of for teaching philosophy is the learning by doing methodology, or students spend 50% of their time in the classroom and the other 50% in a series of learning by doing modules. So if at any point you get a chance to come, please visit us. We are very welcoming and you will fall in love with our beautiful campus. So just let us know if at any point you can come. So now talking about the consumer-driven sustainability lab, let me give you a little bit of background. From our perspective, there is two ways in which you can promote sustainable practices in agriculture. On the one hand, you can actually sort of force them through policy. You know, when the government comes and says, this is the way that we are going to do things. And that usually creates a lot of friction, very low rates of adoption, and in some instances, we may even have companies going out of business because they cannot take in those additional costs that they may have. On the other side, what we can do is actually take a look at what the market side is demanding in terms of sustainability. So that's what we do. We acknowledge that the consumer, through their choices, are the most powerful driving force of change in the agri-food systems. Basically, we believe that the consumers can send the right market signals that go down the value chain all the way to the producers, so the value chain can actually start implementing sustainable practices that also are going to be profitable. Not only force on them, but they are going to be actually good for business. What is the problem? We know there is research that is being conducted anywhere in the world about sustainable demand, sustainable consumption, what consumers think, their values, and all of that. However, if you take a look at the literature, most of that research is being conducted in developed nations, the US, Asia, Europe. When it comes to Latin America, there is very little information around so that we can understand the local consumer. When you close the glass into Central America, there is almost nothing. So that is something that we are trying to do to actually promote sustainable agri-food systems by reducing that knowledge gap that we have regarding sustainable products, services, supply, and demand. That is what we want to do. We want to understand what the consumer knows, their values, their attitudes. Sort of, we want to influence in the positive way those attitudes and habits so that we can promote positive change toward more sustainable agri-food systems in the region. So about the lab that we have, the Consumer-Driven Sustainability Lab is really new. We came up with the idea in 2020 at some point in the middle of the pandemic. Then by 2021, we got our first eye tracker because we wanted to have a very strong biometric component. This is a very basic computer-based eye tracker. By the second half of 2023, we added 2 additional eye trackers, also a pair of glasses, and we added capabilities to do facial expression analysis because we also wanted to understand the emotions and the feelings that people were experiencing when exposed to any stimuli, let's say an advertisement, a video, a message about sustainability. So we don't want people to tell us what they see, what they care about, how they feel. We want to actually be able to measure all those things. As of today, the lab that we have offers research capabilities, and we also offer some services to the industry just to be able to make some profit on the side by offering neuromarketing services. We think it's a unique lab in the region. If you take a look at the iMotions, which is the software that we use website, we are the only lab that is actually registered from Mexico to Ecuador. There might be other people using the technology. However, it seems that we are the only ones that are making some noise. So we're going to take it and say that we are unique. As of today, we also have two researchers, an ag economist, and a person that is her specialty is in agricultural education and extension, because we do the economic analysis and we also want to be able to actually educate and send signals to the consumer to try to influence their purchasing behavior. And all of the work that we do in the conceptual framework of Klaus Grunert regarding the barriers to sustainable consumption. And a little bit about the conceptual framework that we use. So first of all, we need sustainable products to be available. If there is no sustainable products, you cannot have sustainable consumption. Then those products have to actually let know the consumer that they are sustainable, for example, through an organic seal or something like that. Then the consumer has to actually notice and correctly interpret and understand those signals. And then it comes that if the consumer is doing the wrong inferences, they may be doing some choices, sustainable choices, but for the wrong reasons. Okay. And then we also take a look at how sustainable attributes play along other food attributes. Let's say brand, taste, convenience of the food products, and how all of those things are going to play along in what the consumers are actually thinking and doing when they're doing their purchase decisions. Okay, so I hear a microphone. Thank you. All right, so that is the framework that we use for everything that we do. We basically want to be able to understand the consumers to the best of our capabilities. So then you ask me, so what can you do? So we do traditional research on agriculture and applied economics, and also sort of traditional research on agricultural education and extension. However, for everything that we do, we have a sustainability perspective in it. So we actually force it so that we have the sustainable concept always present with us. We have been doing a little bit of experimental economics. I am not an experimental economist, so that's taking time. There is a very pronounced learning curve. However, we already did a couple of experiments. Also, we have started working with psychometric measures, which is basically, all those untangible concepts. We already did one study on a psychometric measure, and we can do biometrics, basically eye tracking and facial expression analysis. So if you remember, two of the barriers to sustainable consumption are going to be basically the first two ones, is that consumers have to be informed that a food product is sustainable. So that's why we use biometrics. We use biometrics to actually take a look in what moment people is noticing the sustainability messages. We're taking a look at how many times they actually are revisiting those sustainability messages. And also, since we can do emotion analysis, we want to understand how people feel. Do they feel happy when they see that the food product is going to be sustainable? Are they completely indifferent to those sustainability attributes? In the case that you see in the screen, what we have is a hypothetical restaurant menu where we were testing sustainability messages to see if consumers were willing to pay a little bit more for sustainable attributes. All right. Some examples of what we have been doing. For example, with undergraduate students, we did a couple of very interesting studies. In the first one, you see a restaurant menu at the bottom. What we did is that we use menu engineering and eye tracking to actually develop a protocol that allow us to make recommendations to the restaurants so they can have better designed menus, and also that the way that the menu is structured helps them to be more profitable. So that is something that you may say, so what is the sustainability on that? We argue that there is economic sustainability, and it's also one of the services that we provide to local restaurants in Honduras. Then in another very, very beautiful study that we did, we took a look at coffee packaging that is available in Honduras and El Salvador. And in that study, we were looking at the perception of quality and sustainability that consumers had when they were taking a look to those different coffee packages. And I will tell you a little bit more about those results in a couple of slides. We have taken, the lab is a little bit young, so we don't have many publications. However, with the research that we have done so far, we have been attending a couple of conferences. In 2022, we went to Costa Rica to present the very first research that we were doing, which was titled Beyond Coffee Preferences, where we wanted to understand how coffee preferences in the Honduran context were stacking up with the sustainability concerns and sustainability knowledge of labels that students have. So we're starting to incorporate all the sustainability knowledge into the research that we are doing as of today. Also, we went to Uruguay last year to an IAAE sponsor symposium, where we were taking a look at something a little bit different, which was complementary nutritional labels. You know, there is, for example, the traffic light supplementary nutritional label. There is the warning discs. Those are policies that they are getting a lot of traction in developed nations and also in developed nations too. However, in the region that we have seen that they are being enforced through policy, and there is no research backing up which of the two systems we are going to use. So, you know, we decided to take a look at if people noticing them, how people feel when they look at the warning disc or the traffic light, nutritional labels, and which ones are going to actually affect or influence the purchasing decision that consumers might be making. Also, this year, if I'm a conference in Spain, please stop and say hi. We're going to be presenting two of the research projects that we have right now. One is we take a look at the local egg market in Honduras, which is a very interesting market because here the regulation does not make a difference between egg quality. So that is something that is going to be up to the producer or the seller decision to what are they going to advertise. But there is not a clear policy that is going to make actually differences between small and large eggs, for example. So it's a commodity and all the eggs are perceived by consumers sort of the same. So we wanted to take a look to see if consumers may be not willing to pay more for an egg, but they are willing to favor some companies depending on the sustainable practices that they are advertising. Okay. Also, we are presenting a new proposal, which is a psychometric study that we did to create consumer profiles, but not based on the traditional market segmentation metrics. What we are using is attitudes toward coffee consumption. And we have 5 dimensions that we analyze to actually create those profiles. And then we add the socioeconomic data and actually the purchasing decisions that people make. And also, if you're going to the AAEA meeting in the US, I'm going to be presenting the results of that study that we did with the hypothetical restaurant menus, where we found that there is a willingness to pay for sustainable packaging for takeout and delivery in Honduras, which was the target research question that we had in this project. And we have a couple of publications that we can take a look at later on. So what do we know about the local consumers? You know, most of the research is in developed nations, but what is going on in Honduras and in a couple of other countries in Central America? First of all, regarding coffee packaging, for example, 43% of the consumers associate sustainability only with environmental aspects. 23% of the consumers only associated with the economic aspect of the concept, and only 13% think about the social aspect of sustainability. So there is a misunderstanding of the consumers. I'm sorry. There is a misunderstanding that sustainability is a holistic concept. Also, we found, for example, that even though that 85% of the consumers say that they consume something that is going to be sustainable at least once a week, only 43% take into consideration sustainability attributes when making food purchases. So there is like, social desirability bias. They want to be sustainable, but they actually are not taking the actions to be. And we ask consumers, what do you care about? And it turns out that to assess if a product, especially a coffee, is going to be sustainable, 20% are going to look at very specific for certifications. Sustainability is a credence attribute, sort of. So 20% look at certifications, 15%, and this is the second most chosen attribute, is going to be the color of the packaging. And finally, the material. It doesn't have to be sustainable. It has to look sustainable on the eyes of the consumer. And also, without a price reference, we found that consumers are willing to pay 79% more for sustainable coffee than for non-sustainable coffee, relative to the median price of a pound of coffee. So consumers actually, price is important. However, if they don't have a reference, they tend to overvalue a little bit sustainability in a region. What else do we know? This was a study that we did on the local demand for coffee also. Um, we found that sustainable labels actually do get noticed. However, people don't fully understand or interpret those labels. Let's take, for example, Rainforest Alliance. If you see, we have that only 23% of the consumers actually interpret correctly the Rainforest Alliance label when they see it. However, is the one that is most chosen. So we see that people actually has a preconception when they see these different seals, or maybe they are not familiar at all with them, but they know it's good, but they don't know why those seals are actually good for the environment or for the communities or any other social aspect. So there is a challenge. We have to actually educate consumers on sustainability attributes and concepts so that they can make the right decisions for the right reasons. And also there is between 10 and 27% uh, over the price, willingness to pay over the regular price of coffee if it happens to be sustainable. And then this is the last one that I'm going to show you since I am approaching my 20 minutes. In that egg study that we did, we cannot explain the, the choices that people were making. However, when giving people different alternatives, we found that they favor companies, at least in the case of the egg market, that will be socially sustainable. That is what they care about. And the one that they were choosing the less was conventional eggs. People, they were not looking, for example, at economic sustainability, environmental sustainability. What was important for them in eggs was the social aspect of sustainability. That decision, we have tried several statistical methods to actually understand it, and we are not able to explain the choice that they were making. However, this is very, very consistent data that we have. We only cannot explain it. They favor it, and we don't know why they do it. And also, we keep finding that there is a willingness to pay, not for all. As they go have more income and they have more education, they will tend to be a little bit more sustainability driven. However, on average, there is a market opportunity for sustainable products and services. And then I have a couple of other things, but don't worry about those. We can talk about them a little bit later. And we have a couple of projects that you can ask me the questions, and I will gladly let you know more. And that's it.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Luis. So let's open the floor for for questions, let me suggest that you open your mic, introduce yourself, your name, and your country of or institution, and then make the question, and then or write them in the chat if available. Yeah.
I guess I would have asked a question, Luis. Very interesting work. I had no idea that that type of work was taking place at Zamorano. That's fascinating. I was curious, is there time periods over which you conducted these studies? I'm just curious if the the environmental label wave has just now gotten to Central America, or if it's been there for a while and you guys are just now assessing that. Did you have any thoughts or comments on that?
So what we have been noticing is that there is not as many sustainable alternatives as we wish. In some instances, for example, just this weekend, I was at the supermarket and we were going to buy bananas, and the bananas had the fair trade sticker on them, but there were no other bananas. So there is no choice to make. If you're actually going for the product and it happens to be sustainable, then you purchase a sustainable product. But there is no opportunity to actually choose between alternatives. So there is not enough. That's basically the question. We don't have enough alternatives for consumers to be more educated. So what we are doing is like trying to understand where can we go in the supply side, so that the producers and anyone that is along the value chain can have a better idea of what they care. So if you have to make an investment decision, you have to go with the one that is going to be more profitable first, instead of just doing sustainability for the sake of it, which is good too, but at the end of the day, you have a business. So we are trying to create those market signals.
Thank you so much, Luis. And I do apologize, Jose. I didn't introduce myself. My name is Diego McCall. I'm at the Autonomous University of Barcelona, and I'm finishing my PhD in environmental studies. So thank you.
Very good. More questions? Well, let me just make one, because I think that's because one of the things I have been involved. I'm not a consumer side economist. I'm a production side economist. So forgive me if I'm a little bit naive, I guess, at my question. But we have done some choice experiments in the past, and one of the interesting things that we found is certainly that choice will depend on the information that is contained either within the label or within the information that is being given to the person at that point. So how do you think that you can incorporate some of these ideas in terms of looking not only at the biometrics, but also looking at the information that is contained within that label? And just as a follow-up, have you had any experience yet on looking at counterfeit labels, for example? Because that would be one topic that is going to be hot very soon, in particular because as those markets start to develop and there's a price premium that will be hopefully kind of be materializing, then counterfeiting becomes a little bit of an issue, and it's an issue for seed, by the way, in Africa and Philippines and a couple of other places, and India and so on, that we have had some experiences. But anyhow, let me just make the question to you, Luis.
Absolutely. So absolutely, you're right. People is going to make decisions depending on the information that they're actually getting. In the hypothetical menus that we did, we actually have an information treatment within the study. On one, we were just telling people, so this is what the restaurant does. We have sustainable packaging. You can have it if you pay more. And then in the other treatment, what we did is, this is the problem. This is how many plastic we are producing in Honduras. This is how we deal with it as a restaurant. Are you willing to pay for it? So we are already taking into consideration that. Also, since we found in the previous studies that we have been doing that people is not very familiar with the established labels, let's say USDA Organic, Fair Trade, or Rainforest Alliance, we're actually starting to use more text information into the studies that we do, because people is not familiar yet with those labels. So we are trying to assess, okay, if I communicate that information to you via just a text message, what do you feel about it? And hopefully, as more labels start coming into Honduras or to any of the other countries, we can assess better with choice experiments, how people react to those very specific labels. About counterfeit labels, I haven't thought of that, but that's definitely something that we have to take a look very, very soon.
Oh, thank you. I think somebody raised their hand. Oh, maybe it's gone. More questions. Okay, so let's do one thing. Because in the interest of time, let's just move ahead with the next presentation, and then we will have a little bit more time, and you can either put it in the. I think this thing has a chat. I'm not sure. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. I've worked with Teams most of the time. I forgot about Zoom. But anyhow, if not, you can send me a message or send it to Luis and so on. You can contact Luis if you have any further questions about his research. As research that is being done at Zamorano, which is really, I kind of echoed Diego's. I'm really surprised and interested in learning more about this area of research, because this, I think, is the pioneering work at Zamorano, and it hopefully will open more opportunities to do many collaborations with, particularly with the ECAVAR conference members, because we have people from Purdue, from Saskatchewan, from Berkeley, from different universities around the world, Wageningen, and so on, that are represented in the consortium itself. And you can see a full list of all the board members and the contact people that are involved in the bioeconomy. So this might be a good opportunity to start moving forward with maybe some collaborations with Zamorano and the beautiful research that is being done over there. Okay, so let's move on to the next presentation. The next presentation is by my very good friend, Arie Sanders. Arie Sanders is the Associate Dean of the Graduate Program at Zamorano University. He has over 25 years of experience working on rural development projects in Central America. Currently, he is the local principal investigator for the Feed the Future Innovation Lab for current and emerging threats to crops implemented by Penn State University. And he's a Penn State graduate. I know that. He was close to here. I am in Washington, by the way. So, and it's we are all collaborators, right, Arie? We have our share of doing field work with maize producers in Honduras. So, well, anyhow, welcome.
Okay, thank you. I'm now chasing the crop. I'm now specialist in potato farming.
Oh yeah, there you
go. There you go. Yeah. Okay. My name is Arie Sanders. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm working in Central America, almost a little bit more than 20 years at Zamorano. And at this moment, I'm working together with Wilmer Perez, the CIP, and with Emil Bascos about potato production in Honduras. So this is, we work together with Feed the Future, the Penn State Plant Village program. And what we're trying to do is to reduce the use of fungicides in potato production. So this is my presentation about what we're trying to do. And I try to explain a little bit more if we are successful or not. So it's a huge challenge. Okay, let me move on. Talking about the current potato landscape, most farmers are small-scale farmers. They have less than 1/4 of a hectare producing. Strange enough, we use all imported varieties. We don't have local varieties. Most of them are coming from the Netherlands, France, and Chile, Guatemala. Total production is totally focused on the market. There's all short production cycles, about 90-95 days. And there's a huge use of pesticides to control emerging threats. And this gives us a lot of health environmental challenges. So work together with CEP was trying to introduce a new management style to reduce fungicides. This is a trend about pesticide use in Honduras. I got the data from FAO. The most important, I think, we can find the trend, it is increasing. I saw other data also in Europe, it's still increasing everywhere, and the same in Honduras. So there's a huge import of fungicides, herbicides, pesticides, and that is not reducing at all. So I think that's a big challenge for the ag sector in Honduras. How can you use pesticide reduction? You can work with resistant varieties. Those are normally very expensive. And in most Latin American countries, we have weak local research institutes. This I think that will be a big challenge. The other way to do it is mechanical weed control. There's more herbicides. In Honduras, there's low level mechanization in general, maybe because of hillside agriculture, the main reason. And the other way to do it is decision support deals. I'll say develop software so you apply correctly the quantity of pesticides at the right moment. So this is trying to stop spraying by the calendar. And I was surprised when I prepared this presentation. I did some check in Europe. There's a similar trend in Europe as in Central America that most farmers use spraying by the calendar without the adequate monitoring if it's necessary or not. So we are not alone in this. This is a little bit about the project background. It's Feed the Future Innovation Lab, paid finance and supported by Penn State University in USA. We are the local counterpart, Zamorano University and SIP Peru. And we're conducting field work starting in 21, and we are still working in Honduras. And we are starting now also doing something similar in Guatemala. Our objective is decrease use of fungicides to control late blight in Western Honduras, and doing this by introducing a decision support disc. Our strategy was a co-innovation process by using the Farm Field School, and where we combine social learning and learning by doing practices. So during the whole production cycle, weekly, we were working together with small farmers to understand a little bit more about how they produce and train them in the use of this disc. And our study objective was analyze how successful we are by applying this Farm Field School and trying to introduce this disc to reduce fungicides. This is the famous disc. It's just in carton. It's just totally focused on three questions: how resistant is the potato variety? When was the last day it was raining? And when did you apply it last time your fungicides? Based on this, you can reduce your fungicide, because if you spray by calendar, you just spray every 3 or 4 days. By using those discs, you can reduce the number of applications. So it's important to understand we are not reducing 100% all the fungicides. What we're trying to do is reduce the quantity of fungicide used during production cycle. So this tool helps farmers to be more efficient and a little bit more sustainable in using their fungicides. What we did, we started 4 farm field schools, working with different kinds of local parts. That's very important. We work together with some private corporation that works with contract farmers. So we established a farm field school with those contract farmers. We have also a women group, and we have 2 groups working together with local farmers associations. So the different kind of groups, and was trying to test if there were differences or not between those groups. So what we did, we established field trials to analyze the effectiveness of the disc, and we also analyzed the variety susceptibility for late blight. And this is a little bit the model behind our approach. We have those small groups of farmers, between 15 and 20 farmers, working together with our technicians to establish those field trials and to discuss during the production cycle what is going on in the fields. So this discussion is a process of social learning, and we see directly the results because we have those field trials and farmers are analyzing, discussing if this is effective or not. And that process is very important. It has to do is to check if the technology you try to introduce is ready to accept or adopt by the farmers. It's not only by the farmer itself, it's all by the system. Fits this in the current production system, and also fits this in the current discourse, how to produce your potatoes. And I think that's the biggest challenge we have. And this is all about, I'm going to explain a little bit how we analyze it. We use the Good Farmer framework to understand what's the perception of the farmer about being a good potato producer. So from his perspective, he explained to us, being a good potato farmer is having good yields, having clean fields, reducing disease, talk with technicians. So there's a whole cultural embeddedness in being a good farmer. And when we did the interviews, this is our method, we used a case study, and we did semi-structured interviews with farmers participating during the process and after process. And we came up with some interesting results. If you work with this kind of models, you have to anticipate a little bit what's going on about knowledge. You have to explain very well how technology works. So that's one reason we had that continuous training and social learning processes. What can expect? We're trying to introduce a new technology. They don't know. And this is one of the reasons we have a very intensive follow-up with our farmers to have constant discussion and having those field trails so they can see if it's functional or not. And also based on farm experience with other kind of farm field schools, it's very important to have people in those groups that bring added value. So people were important, larger farmers maybe they are open for new kind of technologies. And also we use the already existing networks, and hopefully those networks will help us to adapt the technology, but also spread the technology among the own networks. So this is all anticipating all those things by using this model. So what about the findings? I have 3 issues to discuss now. First, about what's a good farmer, how influence that in pesticide use, and what's a good farmer, how influence this about using this decision-making tool or this disc to reduce pesticide use. And this is, we interviewed about 20 farmers, semi-structured interview, and asking them, what is a good farmer? And this is more or less the results. A good farmer, according to the potato farmers, is having a clean plot that is clean, nice, neat. Very important, have crop without diseases, because disease can spread to other crops. So you don't want to get problems with your neighbors. So you need a very clean crop. You need large yields. That's one of the most important. The most important for them is getting a large yields, and if possible, use of technology. They considered neighbors who can use tractors to prepare land. Those are good farmers. That's what they're dreaming also. Use of new kind of technology to improve the yields. Bringing all those concepts to pest management, we found about 7 big issues, and that you also can find normally in the literature. People are risk averse. They're using a kind of technology. They're doing fine with it, and it's quite difficult to introduce new kind of innovations. Very important in the perception, they totally believe that synthetic pesticides are very effective, and so there's a blind confidence in this. Also, there's a limited supply of alternatives. There are no varieties that are resistant to late blight, and there's also no integrated pest management strategies to control this. So there's almost no alternative at all. All the technical assistance normally coming from sellers of the cooperatives are highly focused on use of agrochemicals. So the perception of farmers is using agrochemicals is the only way to manage my pest. What we're seeing is an increase in pesticide dose. There are a lot of experimentation. They just kind of chemical class, if you see those farmers mixing fungicides with herbicides on the same time to applying at the same time to save on labor. And what they're looking for, they are stressed because they see some kind of disease, or maybe next day there will be some kind of disease of pests. And so they look for quick and fast effective solutions. So the whole system, what we have at this moment, is focused on applying chemicals of high amount of pesticides and in this case fungicides. So this is we checked those 20 farmers we interviewed about fungicide use, insecticide use, herbicide use, and we estimate an environmental impact total. And they all, there's no exception, it's high. So there's overuse of each of those chemicals, and some of them use much more than others. But the general trend is use a lot. And this is normally the frequency. It's spraying by calendar. Every 3-4 days, you will see someone in the field trying to control all those threats, especially fungicides is in high use. Every 3-4 days, or twice a week, they are spraying. And this is one of the most important. So this is our field trial. We did with 2 varieties, the conventional approach and the disc we used. And what we find is that the cost per hectare by using the disc reduced. You can almost save about $1,700 to $1,800 per hectare. However, the yields are a little bit, in the case of Bellini, we saw that was an increase of yields, and in the case of Paradiso, we saw a loss of yield. So there's something going on. We still have to check, and we have to do new field trials to get a little bit more information on this. Gross income is quite high, but also the costs are quite high. The average cost for potato production in Honduras is about $12,000 to $13,000. So at the end, the net income is not that high. But so what we found, this disc is a kind of input saving innovation. The quantity of input reduced, so you spend less dollars on fungicides. And also the netto output, say the netto income, will increase. So this, for economists, this first figure is very interesting. I mean, this is a positive innovation. However, in the second figure, you see something different, and this has to do about the perception of the farmers. Yes, we are using the quantity of input, we use less fungicides, but there is a trend that the reduction of fungicides will affect your total output. So your total output will decrease. Our estimation this moment, and we have to fine-tune that, is that the savings you have by using less fungicides are larger than the loss in your output. But this is not seen by the farmer. They just see the final yields, and for them at that moment it's important to have a large yield so they can pay off the credits they have, and they can show up saying, I have that yield. So this figure has a huge influence. It's favorable in a financial way, but not favorable in the good farm definition of perception. So what we're seeing is we're trying to push the use of this disc among other farmers, and we think that innovation is good. There are financial benefits. Maybe they are not that large, but can be a little bit negative. But in general, it's positive, especially sustainability. However, the yield of A-quality potatoes is a little bit affected. This is affecting adaptation a certain way because farms are looking for high yields, but that's the main production goal. Also, crops affected by late blight. So if you reduce the number of fungicides, you will find out that the plant will be not that nice. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect your production. But in the perception of a farmer, I need a real clean potato field. This is not helping that much. And just a little bit bold to say, but at the end, in all the interviews and all the discussions, farmers are not that highly interested in the environmental impact they are causing, including the health issue. We mention it every time. They will say, yeah, they agree. But at the end, what they're trying to do is to survive, just focusing totally on high-end, high yields. And including a little bit discussion with Luis about this, there's no market for healthy potatoes. So if you take the risk using this innovation, using this disc, that will affect a little bit maybe your yields. There's no way that someone is paying for this. So all the risk is held by the farmer. And I think that's another big challenge we have by introducing this innovation. The conclusion, the disc, this tested in Peru, it's tested in Ecuador. We did it now in Honduras. We're going to try it. We're going to do it now in Guatemala. Help reduce fungicides use effectively. But there's a low adoption rate among small farmers. And the traditional potato farmer is still dominating the sector. Importing all those varieties who are very susceptible to late blight. There's no tendency or trend among small farmers to become a little bit more sustainable. And there's a lot of information where the farmers get the information from is how totally focus on use of chemicals, including credit providers who don't want to lose the credit. So they prefer that farmers are using all those fungicides. And of course, out of important source are the sellers of agrochemicals. They're highly interested to sell that product to the farmers. This is a little bit negative, cynical way, a nihilistic way of thinking about sustainability with smallholders in potato production. I don't think we have to be that negative neither. I think it's important doing this kind of research and just look out what we can do, what can we change. I mean, this is some kind of behavior economics maybe coming in. I'm trying to analyze this from a more social issue. I think at the end, the government has an important role to play. We have a weak government. They had a totally failed potato variety improvement program, but still someone has to do something about introducing new varieties that are resistant against late blight, because the impact of the disc will be higher also. I think we need some kind of funding. Joe Biden is sending a lot of money to the farmers in the United States. I guess we have to need the same demand in Honduras. How can we push farming practices that are more sustainable? And maybe we need some kind of funding for this. Creating new markets, I think that's a very important issue. Checking if people is a willingness to pay for more sustainable potato production. I mean, that's Luis is coming in. And I think there's also a need for innovation policies. The current policies is pushing too much the use of fungicides and non-sustainable production. And I think we have to rethink about the current policies we have is helpful and what we can change in this kind of policies to make it more sustainable. And this is what I have for today.
Perfect. Thank you, Arie. Thank you for a really interesting research project. Let me just add that I have been, for the past year or so, have been providing some technical bus stopping to SIPTO, the International Potato Center. We have been doing some economic assessments of precisely the late blight resistant trait that they have. It's a genetically modified trait, but they also have a genome edited trait apparently in the works. This is going to be tested. It's been tested, and it might be approved in Nigeria, Kenya, Bangladesh, and perhaps a couple of other countries. So this was an interesting proposition, because I think that although you mentioned that we have very weak research institutions, but that might be one more piece in that puzzle of sustainability, kind of making sure that we overcome some of these institutional kind of very chronic kind of institutional issues that have been going on over just investments in research and development in Honduras have been pitiful. I mean, this is a reality we had to live with. So this is particularly in plant breeding. So I think that might be one place where we want to kind of have some. I'll have some conversations. I'm actually going to Kenya next week to work with more of my SIP colleagues to actually work on that economic assessment. I'll have a chat about that if there are plans to start thinking about Latin America for that. That would be an interesting proposition. Having said that, let me just kind of start with a little bit of a question, because I think that one of the glaring things, and the economist in me is actually questioning this, because I think the big thing is one of the big questions is healthier for whom and how do you find healthier? Because if you think about healthier, it might be healthier that it's better, good looking kind of tuber that you have in front of you, no damage, nothing in the tuber. Or it could be healthier because it has a reduced pesticide, but that will, in a sense, define. And I'm a little bit. I would have to give it a little more thought about the rationale behind those two graphs that you have in there, because it seems to me that if there is no premium for a particular technology, or or that you might find that sensitivity to the input side. Well, I think that might be a little bit of an issue, because then farmers will become much more sensitive to those input costs, right? And so in that sense, you don't have a market or a premium for the difference, then your input should have made a difference. And then, of course, you find that reality is different, right? So yeah, let's stay. It's just the rationale. The explaining it is a little bit. I think we had to work on it a little bit more.